My grandfather Diran was born in 1905. He was born in Isparta, which is in southern Turkey. He was born on the 15th of May of 1905. He was born in Isparta, but the situation in Isparta became a bit difficult. So in 1918, they moved to Izmir. It became difficult because there was some pressure from the Turkish government on the Armenians. So they moved to Izmir, and they spent there a couple of years. Two of his siblings were born in Izmir. He was the eldest of 6 siblings. His name was Diran Timurian. In Izmir, the situation also became difficult. It was mainly ruled by Greeks, and a lot of Armenians were living in Izmir. But when the Turks took over, the Armenians were evacuated and were forced to march towards the desert of Mesopotamia. My granddad was about to be executed, and he escaped execution only because he was the son of a very well-known public administrator. I always remember him, telling us about the moment of the execution when somebody shouted Artin Efendi, which means, he's the son of Artin Efendi, of this quite well-known Arutun was his father's name. So that's how he escaped death. So he escaped death with some of his friends, but they were forced to march towards the desert of Mesopotamia. He managed to escape and run towards Greece. Where he met, by chance, by destiny, and he was incredibly lucky, all the members of his family, because male and female were separated. So he lost tracks of his sisters, of his mother. And in Greece at the time, I'm talking about 1924 roughly, there were a lot of refugee camps. So he managed to find all his siblings there. In the meantime, in Bari, since 1913, which is my city, Bari, in the south of Italy, there was a famous poet called Hrant Nazarian, and also another one, Yenov Carmen. Hrant Nazarian was new. He was a very cultured man, and he knew what was happening with the Armenians. So he knew also that there were quite few of them back in Greece. So he tried to talk to a lot of political figures in Italy and some literate because he wanted desperate to help these Armenians back in Greece. And in fact, he managed in 2 slots to let them come to Bari, free of charge. I've got some documents that free of charge. They managed to cross the Piraeus, and they came to Bari. The conditions, obviously, of these Armenians were desperate. At the time, there was a lot of, it was just after the war, so there was the economy even there in Italy wasn't brilliant. So for 2 years, he tried desperately, to help, and some people that were a bit well off tried to help. But for 2 years, they lived in terrible condition. In 1924, they all moved to Bari, and they lived, all these Armenians, including my granddad, in a factory for wool factory. And from there, they started this carpet business, Oriental carpet business. But it started very slowly. First, they were just living in terrible condition. Everything was a donation. They got carpet, they got blankets donated, but they were living like that. And then eventually, in 1927, Norarax was funded. They got some donation of wood, and they made some barracks. And slowly, you know, these barracks, you know, they were furnished, there were donations of furniture, and all these Armenians managed to live in Nor Araks.